About this time I began to break my mind to those poor people in Bedford, and to tell them my condition, which, when they heard, they told Mr. Gifford of me, who himself also took occasion to talk with me, and was willing to be well persuaded of me, though I think but from little grounds. But he invited me to his house, where I should hear him confer with others about the dealings of God with the soul, from all which I still received more conviction, and from that time began to see something of the vanity and inward wretchedness of my wicked heart, for as yet I knew no great matter therein, but now it began to be discovered unto me, and also to work at that rate for wickedness as it never did before. Now I evidently found that lusts and corruptions would strongly put forth themselves within me, in wicked thoughts and desires which I did not regard before. My desires for heaven and life began to fail. I found also that whereas my soul was full of longing after God, now my heart began to hanker after every foolish vanity. Yea, my heart would not be moved to mind that that was good. It began to be careless, both of my soul and heaven. It would now continually hang back, both to and in every duty, and was as a clog on the leg of a bird to hinder her from flying. Nay, thought I, now I grow worse and worse. Now am I farther from conversion than ever I was before. Wherefore I began to sink greatly in my soul, and began to entertain such discouragement in my heart as laid me low as hell. If now I should have burned at a stake, I could not believe that Christ had love for me. Alas, I could neither hear him, nor see him, nor feel him, nor savour any of his things. I was driven as with a tempest, my heart would be unclean, the Canaanites would dwell in the land. Sometimes I would tell my condition to the people of God, which, when they heard, they would pity me, and would tell me of the promises. But they had as good have told me that I must reach the sun with my finger as have bidden me receive or rely upon the promise, and as soon as I should have done it, all my sense and feeling was against me, and I saw I had a heart that would sin, and that lay under a law that would condemn. These things have often made me think of that child which the Father brought to Christ, who, while he was yet a coming to him, was thrown down by the devil, and also so rent and torn by him that he lay and wallowed, foaming. Luke 9:42, Mark 9:20. Further, in these days I should find my heart to shut itself up against the Lord and against his holy word. I have found my unbelief to set, as it were, the shoulder to the door to keep him out, and that, too, even then, when I have with many a bitter sigh cried, Good Lord, break it open. Lord, break these gates of brass, and cut these bars of iron asunder. Psalm 107:16. Yet that word would sometimes create in my heart a peaceable pause. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me. Isaiah 45:5. But all this while, as to the act of sinning, I never was more tender than now. I durst not take a pin or a stick, though but so big as a straw, for my conscience now was sore, and would smart at every touch. I could not now tell how to speak my words, for I fear I should misplace them. Oh, how gingerly did I then go in all I did or said! I found myself as on a miry bog that shook if I did but stir, and was there left both of God and Christ and the Spirit and all good things. But, I observe, though I was such a great sinner before conversion, yet God never much charged the guilt of the sins of my ignorance upon me, only he showed me I was lost if I had not Christ, because I had been a sinner. I saw that I wanted a perfect righteousness to present me without fault before God, and this righteousness was nowhere to be found but in the person of Jesus Christ. But my original and inward pollution, that was my plague and my affliction. That, I say, at a dreadful rate, always putting forth itself within me. That I had the guilt of, to amazement. By reason of that, I was more loathsome in mine own eyes than was a toad. And I thought I was so in God's eyes too. Sin and corruption, I said, would as naturally bubble out of my heart as water would bubble out of a fountain. I thought now that everyone had a better heart than I had. I could have changed heart with anybody. I thought none but the devil himself could equalize me for inward wickedness and pollution of mind. I fell, therefore, at the sight of my own vileness, deeply into despair, for I concluded that this condition that I was in could not stand with a state of grace. Sure, thought I am forsaken of God. Sure I am given up to the devil, and to a reprobate mind, and thus I continued a long while, even for some years together. While I was thus afflicted with the fears of my own damnation, there were two things would make me wonder. The one was, when I saw old people hunting after the things of this life, as if they should live here always, The other was, when I found professors much distressed and cast down, when they met with outward losses, as of husband, wife, child, etc. Lord, thought I, what ado is here about such little things as these? What seeking after carnal things by some, and what grief in others for the loss of them? If they so much labour after and spend so many tears for the things of this present life, how am I to be bemoaned, pitied, and prayed for? My soul is dying, my soul is damning. Were my soul but in a good condition, and were I but sure of it, oh, how rich I should esteem myself, though blessed but with bread and water. I should count those but small afflictions, and should bear them as little burdens. A wounded spirit who can bear? And though I was thus troubled and tossed and afflicted with the sight and sense and terror of my own wickedness, yet I was afraid to let this sight and sense go quite off my mind. For I found that, unless guilt of conscience was taken off the right way, that is, by the blood of Christ, a man grew rather worse for the loss of his trouble of mind than better. Wherefore, if my guilt lay hard upon me, then I should cry that the blood of Christ might take it off. And if it was going off without it, for the sense of sin would be sometimes as if it would die and go quite away, then I would also strive to fetch it upon my heart again, by bringing the punishment for sin in hell fire upon my spirits, and should cry, Lord, let it not go off my heart, but the right way, but by the blood of Christ, and by the application of thy mercy through him to my soul. For that scripture lay much upon me, without shedding of blood is no remission. Hebrews 9:22. And that which made me the more afraid of this was, because I had seen some, who, though when they were under wounds of conscience, then they would cry and pray, but they, seeking rather present ease from their trouble than pardon for their sin, cared not how they lost their guilt. So they got it out of their mind, and therefore having it got off the wrong way, it was not sanctified unto them. But they grew harder and blinder and more wicked after their trouble. This made me afraid, and made me cry to God the more that it might not be so with me. And now was I sorry that God had made me a man, for I feared I was a reprobate. I counted man as unconverted, the most doleful of all the creatures. Thus being afflicted and tossed about my sad condition, I counted myself alone, and above the most of men unblessed. Yea, I thought it impossible that ever I should attain to so much goodness of heart as to thank God that he had made me a man. Man, indeed, is the most noble by creation, of all creatures in the visible world, but by sin he has made himself the most ignoble. The beasts, birds, fishes, etc., I blessed their condition, for they had not a sinful nature. They were not obnoxious in the sight of God. They were not to go to hell fire after death. I could therefore have rejoiced had my condition been as any of theirs. In this condition I went a great while. But when comforting time was come, I heard one preach a sermon upon those words in the song 4:1. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. But at that time he made these two words, my love, his chief and subject matter, from which, after he had a little opened the text, he observed these several conclusions. 1. That the church, and so every saved soul, is Christ's love when loveless. 2. Christ's love without a cause. 3. Christ's love when hated of the world. 4. Christ's love when under temptation and under desertion. 5. Christ's love from first to last. But I got nothing by what he said at present, only when he came to the application of the fourth particular. This was the word he said: If it be so that the saved soul is Christ's love when under temptation and desertion, then poor tempted soul, when thou art assaulted and afflicted with temptation, and the hidings of God's face, yet think on these two words, my love, still. So as I was a-going home, these words came again into my thoughts, and I well remember, as I came in, I said thus in my heart, What shall I get by thinking on these two words? This thought had no sooner passed through my heart, but the words began thus to kindle in my spirit, Thou art my love. Thou art my love. 20 times together, and still as they ran thus in my mind, they waxed stronger and warmer, and began to make me look up. But being as yet between hope and fear, I still replied in my heart, But is it true? But is it true? At which that sentence fell in upon me, He wist not that it was true which was done by the angel. Acts 12:9. Then I began to give place to the word, which with power did over and over make this joyful sound within my soul, Thou art my love, thou art my love. and nothing shall separate thee from my love. And with that, Romans 8:39 came into my mind. Now was my heart filled, full of comfort and hope, and now I could believe that my sins should be forgiven me. Yea, I was now so taken with the love and mercy of God that I remember I could not tell how to contain till I got home. I thought I could have spoken of his love and of his mercy to me, even to the very crows that sat upon the ploughed lands before me, had they been capable to have understood me. Wherefore I said in my soul with much gladness, well, I would I had a pen and ink here. I would write this down before I go any farther, for surely I will not forget this 40 years hence. But alas, within less than 40 days, I began to question all again, which made me begin to question all still. Yet still at times I was helped to believe that it was a true manifestation of grace unto my soul, though I had lost much of the life and savour of it.